Hi, this is Ed in Southern California, and welcome to Global TV Talk Show. The show will begin in just a few minutes. We have two special guests, both very senior in people leadership, large organizations over the years. So today, Ken Somers, S-O-M-E-R-S, Managing Partners, Somers HR Solutions, is my co-host. And he has brought with us Bryan Tamburino, who is now a senior consultant, and they'll be doing their self-intros in just a minute. So we're going to be talking about these two guys and how they've transitioned from huge multinational organizations into their current role as a coach and self-employed consultant back to corporate people. So we're going to find out about their businesses and how they got started and some of their peaks and valleys. We all have them, right? I do. And what kind of projects and what makes a successful project, and how do you want to be known? So it's all about public relations, and we'll be right back with more. Stay tuned. It's Ed in Southern California. Welcome back to Global TV Talk Show. Visit us, globaltvtalkshow.com. You'll see a lot of programming there. All of it's free access 24/7, offering our hosts, our co-hosts, and our sponsors and our guest speakers nonstop global PR. globaltvtalkshow.com. We're a business unit of globalbusinessnews.net, which has been around since 2003. Google Analytics reports since 2003, January 2003, when it launched, there's been 542,000 audience page views. Just amazing. But when we started Global TV Talk Show on or about March 1 of 2020, because of the pandemic crashing our live conference business, we began Global TV Talk Show. It's a series of dialogues, some one-on-one, some groups like this, and some even bigger. Personally, I like the smaller groups better because we can go into more depth and do a deep dive, not only on topics, but on people and why they do what they do, and how they've survived the pandemic. Google Analytics has measured just under 200,000 audience visits since on or about March 1, 2020. So thank you out there. A very special guest today is Bryan Tamburino in Southern Connecticut, and he's a business guy. He also has a podcast series, which I'm going to ask him to talk about. And once again, this is global PR, so no whole barred, just keep it clean, G-rated. We have sensitive ears out there.
Do we have to?
And Ken Somers, also in Southern Connecticut. Ken, welcome back.
Thank you, Ed. It's always a pleasure to see you.
And thank you for co-hosting a couple of previous shows. The one with Sarah also got a whole bunch of hits last year, and now the two ladies. So here we are again. Ken, tell us what's new and exciting in your world today as we sit here in October.
Oh boy, what's new and exciting in my world today? It's been a busy year. It's been a good year so far. As we enter the fourth quarter here, I'm noticing as I talk to clients growing anxiety about the economy.
Yes.
I'm sure that Bryan is seeing the same thing, and I'm sure you are as well, Ed.
Mm-hmm.
I think my biggest worry, for lack of a more elegant word, as we go through the balance of the year and enter winter, is that we're going to have another a bad winter between flu and COVID and RSV and monkeypox and every other damn thing that's out there. I just worry that that we've declared victory of the pandemic prematurely, and that we'll pay the price with another bad winter.
So I totally agree with you. Joanne and I are fully vaxxed. We had the flu, we had the shingles, we got the booster thing. So we're set. But a lot of people are not fully vaxxed, and they're going to be contagious. So unfortunately, it's going to be a divisive thing, and it's going to hold back, I believe, some of the in-person conferences and meetings. I know I had begun to set up to do a whole series in Europe and around going Mexico, Canada, across the US, and I canceled them all. I was just going to do video. And so we've been getting high numbers of viewers, but it's not the same as being in person.
No, it's not. It's not. But you know what? And you and I talked about this more than a year ago. I think with Stephen, hybrid is going to be the norm.
Yeah.
And a lot of businesses haven't yet intellectually embraced that yet.
Right. Well, they don't know what to do.
I'm curious, Brian, if you're seeing that with your clients, but I think that people are reluctantly acknowledging that some variation of hybrid is going to be the norm.
Yeah. Let's go to Bryan Tamburino. Welcome. We had a few minutes earlier establish some rapport. Thanks very much for your time. I know it's precious time. So introduce yourself, please, real quick. And then I want to find out more about your own podcast series.
Right. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the introduction, Ken. So, Brian, I'm the founder of a company called Tangible Analytics Consulting. So I started this firm back in 2017. So we've been in business now 5 years, going on 6. Pretty excited. It's been a crazy journey. We've pivoted a lot, and eventually one of those pivots turned into meeting Ken, and now here we are with you. The firm focuses on data analytics or processes, services that really surround that component. I used to list in the corporate world before consulting, right? So I take that perspective. We now develop different types of software, mainly client-specific software, with municipalities and businesses. So on the municipal side, we have custom software for municipalities, maybe services or tasks they may perform, like grant management. We do grant preparation, and of course, like I mentioned, the software and the consulting piece. One service that we've established after a considerable amount of time is the HR team, and that's kind of where Ken comes in, because we connected as Ken being a consultant, me having this project, and a couple of other people that I work with pretty closely, and so far it's been pretty successful.
So, Brian, we're having a little difficulty hearing you. I think it's something in your high-speed connection is not clicking. No. But we got most of what you said, and we're not going to stop. Let's try to keep going. I just want you to be aware of it. And we're going to play authenticity game here. So we're not going to stop and start again. So the audience will stay with us because we're human, and we're going to try to fix the darn problem technically.
All right.
Let's go to Ken for a minute. Ken, what are you working on right now, if it's not confidential?
No, it's not confidential. The thing that's very immediately in front of me is working with one of my clients on their 2023 compensation plan. And I'm sure that many people who see this video will shake their heads in agreement. It's that time of year. And quite honestly, I'm struggling. The market data is clear. Salaries need to go up. Everything that I've read and I've looked at many sources, both public and private. Companies did a 2022 compensation plan that was more aggressive than 2021. And when all was said and done, and you add up what you actually have been spending this year on compensation, it is exceeding the 2022 budgets. I'm actually hopeful that with the softening economy, and I mean, softening is, I believe the softening is irrefutable. You know, how soft is the question? I'm hoping that as we build the 2023 plan, that we can hold to the plan, because my client, and I'm sure it's true for, you know, pretty much everybody out there, people costs are going to go up in 2023.
Mhm.
They went up this year, they're going to go up again next year. So I'm struggling between moving the merit program forward by, you know, do I spend an extra half a point or a point of compensation in a merit program? Or do I move the ranges, or how do I balance moving the ranges with the merit budget, all trying to keep it affordable? And it's a tough challenge this year.
Let me
So,
ask you, if I may,
Yeah.
to comment on, well, let me ask you, is
Hmm.
there a difference because people are working remotely versus in office in terms of how much they get paid?
I don't think so. Now, you'll remember my friend, and I know Brian knows him too, Mark Kroll, who's a compensation whiz kid.
Yes.
Mark will tell you that there's more geographic differentials now than there used to be. And remote or hybrid work has stimulated more thinking about geographic differentials. I'm not seeing it. I'm hearing about it, but I'm not seeing it. So for me, there's a disconnect between what I'm reading and hearing about and what I'm actually experiencing with clients. But I also acknowledge, you know, I've got a very small subset of clients compared to the economy. But my short answer is, Ed, is no. I'm not seeing an impact on that other than the emergence of more geographic differentials. I mean, Brian, what are you seeing?
My experience is pretty much this. It's been extremely difficult for me to find something like a salesperson, right? I've had a bit of turnover, and partially it's because I've been trying to find someone who's like local, can be in the office, maybe work in a hybrid format, and it hasn't really worked. It's so now I've mainly because well, partially because of cost and desired compensation, but now I've expanded, realized that not all salespeople need to be on site. So I've got people making calls that maybe on the other side of the country, like Ed. So I've kind of pivoted that a bit too.
Okay.
Fair enough. But did that answer your question, Ed?
Yes, thank you very much. So tell us about your background, Brian, and what did you do before you started your own business?
So I used to work. I worked for a company that focused on like transportation, right? So working with like state agencies, transporting maybe the elderly from there to their doctor's appointment, whatever. I became a finance manager, so it was during the time that I was going to school for finance. Corporate finance is the major of my bachelor's degree. So I became the manager of that department and decided to move on. I wanted to take more of an analyst role. And I started hopping around to different contracts, maybe this manufacturing company over here, and then I got another manufacturing, and it was great. I learned a lot. But what I learned is that in that corporate setting at the time, it was like, I'm an analyst, I'm building dashboards on Excel. We have all of these alternatives, right? And I'll say like, hey, whatever, Mary or something. Do you think we may be able to use this other software? It licenses X number of dollars, and the answer was typically no. So after some time, I wanted to get a degree, pursue a different avenue, and I pretty much took that skill set in recruiting agencies. I realized are fantastic, but when they're placing somebody that was in the position that I was in, it was like, okay, this person has a few years of experience. They are they're working, I don't know, in whichever field, and we're going to place them and say, hey, Brian, we'll give you $25 an hour. And I said, okay, because at the time I thought that that was like sufficient for the position until I learned that they take their percentage or whatever, right? And I felt like I guess I don't want to get too too deep and sound like a hater, but I found that just like the whole interaction with the recruiters in some cases, or some of the recruiters would be like, "Hey, we love you. This is a great position," and then you interview, and maybe they pick another candidate, and you never hear from them again. Not like a, "Hey, sorry, it didn't work out. They decided to go with somebody else." No, just no response.
You know, you set yourself up for a beating, mental beating.
Right. So I decided to say, forget this. I'm going to start placing myself. And then I started placing and looking for different roles. And I finally got a couple and helping these people out as an analyst. And I decided that I might as well turn this into a company.
So I see Superman boxing somebody in the ring behind you. Who is Superman fighting?
This is Muhammad Ali.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Right.
Yeah, that's great artwork you have on your wall there.
Thank you. Yeah, up here I have
Frank. Yeah.
Yep, Frank Sinatra. Over here we have autographed Mike Tyson, a couple of different degrees. Funko Pop from my couple favorite TV shows, Shaquille O'Neal, right here.
Oh, that's
I've got
great.
a great collection.
Yeah, that's super. Yeah. Okay, Ken, welcome back. Brian, we hear you clear right now.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm sorry about earlier. I
No
had
problem.
to plug directly to the Ethernet this
Yeah.
time.
So you know what? There's a lot of people out there watching this who have the same exact problem. So it's okay to be real. It's authentic. Right. Ken, what kinds of projects are you looking at for 23?
Well, probably the biggest single opportunity I'm seeing right now is with everything that's happened over the last 2.5 years. Organizations, and I deliberately say organizations because it's not just companies. It's higher education, it's municipalities, it's social service agencies, it's everyone are taking a step back and reevaluating their business plans, and then figuring out what are the implications for the people management dimension of their business. Does their HR strategy need to change? What do we need? Is retention an issue? Or, how do I deal with hybrid? Or how do I pay people in this crazy environment? So adjustments to business strategy are in turn creating opportunities for HR or HR teams to step up and raise their games and make sure that their HR strategies are aligned with the business outcomes that are desired. So closer alignment between HR activities and steps to support the business objectives. That's where I'm seeing a lot of action.
Yeah. So Brian, would you agree that the role of HR or people leader, right, is that of a public relations agency?
Can you clarify that question?
Yeah, of course. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but I'm thinking of, I mean, sorry, audience, I'm being real here. But, well, the HR leader or the person in charge of people things rather than product or manufacturing has to be right in the middle. They're listening or trying to engage with the employees, right? And certainly trying to engage with different stakeholders across the company or even outside the company now. So the role of the HR leader or the people leader, in my view, is what I'm looking at. And of course, I come from a PR lens, and I'm seeing that the HR people, the people leaders of today, meaning 2022 October, are the ones who have mastered how to be a public relations manager, because they're the ones who have to communicate very, very clearly all the time with a lot of different personalities and backgrounds, keeping in mind the diversity and inclusion. This is really, really important because you're talking to different people. And you know what? The audience out there is exactly the same.
Mhm.
It's just not all old white guys, for instance.
Mhm.
Brian?
Yeah, no, yeah, I think you did. You had a pretty good. So my position in this HR space is more so is less of planning or managing these people. I mean, obviously, I founded this firm, so I have this management component to my responsibilities, right? But within this team that we put together, it's mainly HRIS. So we're working in the information systems. My specific partner is Zoho. So I'll take that strategy that someone creates, or that interpretation of the market, or that interpretation of the current trends, and help put it all into one space. And I'll help with the whole maybe organization, because what I've from the perspective of an algorithm, or even just a basic process, it's like there aren't many exceptions. It's my purpose is to automate this. And then when you get into like this whole political piece, political in like the nature of discussion, or the way that the interaction happens between, I don't know, anyone in a position of power, really, that I've experienced. It's it just, it comes down to me is like, just treat people fairly, like just be fair, have a policy, have a fair policy, use that. But I mean, other than that, I'm the information guy, not the rest of that is for Ken. He's the genius, not me.
No. Well, and think of it this way, Ed. So, people like me, with some exceptions, we tend to focus on, the softer, squishier parts of people leadership. And the soft, squishy parts are important because human beings are complex. Brian's practice is more about translating policies, practices, etc., into tools that can automate a lot of the people processes. So, and you need both, because the reality is you can't, the days of keeping people records on ledger sheets are long gone. The days of keeping people stuff even on spreadsheets are long gone. It's about how do you leverage technology to make the art of managing people more efficient, more productive, more effective. And I know Brian does a lot of work with a company called Zoho, and I've had a little bit of exposure to Zoho, but I think one of the things that would be a good thing if we could ask Brian to talk about is what is Zoho? What are some of the capabilities? I've seen a glimpse of it, but I'm far from understanding all of it. So I'd like to ask Brian if he could share some of that.
Yeah,
Please do.
of course. Thank you. So Zoho is an international company, right? And they have primarily, I believe they started with just the CRM. I'm a Zoho One and a Zoho Creator Partner. So what that means, Zoho One is a full suite of products that they've put in for like actually really reasonable monthly cost or yearly cost, more reasonable than most of the competition. It includes a CRM, it includes campaigns, which is like would help you eliminate something like MailChimp or Hootsuite, social like email marketing, right? We have a social media component. There's a custom application development component, and maybe 40 other products wrapped into this one suite. And I push that to clients, and I help integrate that product or service, or product as a service, I should say. One of the components is Zoho People, and you're right, Ken. It's all about managing the information. So Recruit is kind of the first step. It integrates with something like Indeed or Monster.com and helps you post, let's say resume A, and it listed on any of the sites that you've already connected to based on your account and this and that. Then it helps you manage the hiring process, but all the applications in one place, all the stages of interview, that moves into Zoho People once you integrate, and Zoho People is more ongoing management. So now we're tracking metrics like maybe hire date and social security number and date of birth and end date and I don't know, whatever, any metric that you could think of, really. And it's very specific in nature. So we're taking everything that could be captured by HR, all of the policies, all of the documents, putting it into one place. And Zoho's done a really great job of building this as something would be needed by the HR department to capture all of the service, all of the individual tasks, and put it in one spot.
Bryan, what is your website? People out there would want to check all this out.
Yeah, so it's tangibleconsult.com. So www.tangibleconsult.com.
And all this stuff is there.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Everything's listed, including custom applications that we've developed. I mentioned earlier that we have our client base. We focus on municipalities, right? But we do a lot of business with local businesses or semi-large businesses. We've got international clients, but on the municipal side, for instance, one task or service that they need is grant management. So we've developed a custom application. You can find the link to that. The name of it is Grantable. So that would be grantable.io. You could look into that as well. We have a couple of different applications in development, but there is specifically a tab on the website that lists all the HR functions, talks about the HRIS product, and direct link to sign up if you would like my partner discount.
Let me ask you to go back a little bit to what you just said, grant management. That means getting a grant from foundations or government?
Right, yeah, so it could be from foundation, it could be from the state, could be federal, and these are all trickling down to either maybe a nonprofit or a municipal leader, economic development or something like that.
So
And,
why would a foundation give a grant to me?
Well, I mean, it would really just come down to mission. If you have a nonprofit that you want to support, I don't know, the hunger in a specific town, deliver baskets of food or something, and they have that same passion, they may put out an application for someone to reply, and whoever delivers the best application or most in line with their values, will likely receive the funding.
That's fascinating. So we have a broad audience out there and a lot of people who are under the age of, let's say, 35 or 40, but in a business setting. And, that younger generation is very much into social issues, social causes of community interests, not personal interests. Let's be altruistic for a moment. And, they have a cause like homeless, what are you going to do with homeless? What are you going to do with them? And a lot of it's all mental health issues. So that we're coming back full circle to how we started, Ken, about mental well-being. It's amazing, isn't it, Ken, that it's so openly talked about right now. And 2 years ago, it was still a hush hush.
Oh yeah. No, and I'm going to try to connect these dots here. The art, and Bryan, you can correct me if I misstate by saying art, but I think that the art of grant writing is becoming a very big deal. I do have a couple of nonprofit clients, and the amount of energy and investment they spend on driving the grant engine is enormous because it's their lifeblood. Right. So the fact that a firm like Tangible Consulting provides that service is probably not widely known. Certainly, So, I'm glad that we're going to get that word out as part of this broadcast. But to connect it to the mental health comment, Ed, I'm finding that it's not even the willingness, the eagerness to talk about how I'm feeling today, or, I'm bringing my personal baggage to work, and it's okay.
And it used to be thought of as a girl thing, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
it did have gender overtones, but the reality is that the organizations that ignore and I'm going to use the popular term, the psychological safety of their employees, puts themselves at peril, because whether we want to deal with it or not, it's in the workplace. And I argue that it's better to deal with it upfront and constructively than to wait and to have a problem.
So let me ask you a question, if I can. I'll just be a second, Bryan. You can't avoid it. It's in the headlines, whether it's drones dropping bombs on women and children in Kyiv yesterday, or some crazy people with guns shooting up in Raleigh or wherever. I mean, it's everywhere, and it's almost like a plague descending upon us. And that's mental well-being, with no bones about it.
We are all under, all of us are under more and different kinds of stresses than we were 2.5 years ago.
I think it's also a lot about exposure, no?
Yeah.
We spent 2.5 years sitting on social media watching Kanye go nuts.
Right.
I mean, it brought a lot of light to it. Like, hey, look at these people are just normal people. Except that day to day, we're working. We don't pay attention to it. Instagram blows up, TikTok blows up, or whichever other platforms we see. All of these celebrities going nuts. Britney Spears doesn't have this, and Kanye is this, and whatever it is, and TMZ's pushing all of the least important news in the world. And then here we are, right? So people adopted it. Now, you know what I think it is? Another piece of this is that a lot more people admit to having, or maybe identify. This is what I should say: identify as having I'm anxious or PTSD. I don't know any of the stories, but I've heard many people that I'm like, wait, when did that happen? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's got my theory is that it's overexposure for sure.
Well, and I think that there's something to that, Bryan. I mean, and this may be a risky thing to say, but I draw a parallel to the subject of autism. 5-10 years ago, you didn't hear a lot about autism, and now, here's where I'm going to exaggerate and possibly create a problem, but now it's like everybody is someplace on the autism spectrum, and I think it's not. Overexposure is not a bad thing because it raises awareness, but when it gets carried away, when the TMZs of the world, all you hear about is Kanye, or I'll really go out on a limb here, Ed, Herschel Walker babbling away in Georgia.
What a jerk.
We just turned off the whole Trump audience, by the way. But
goodbye.
But when this stuff is barraging you constantly, whether it's on the TV news or the social media, it's got to affect you.
Right.
I mean, at a certain point, that stuff does get registered in your brain, and what does your brain do with it?
Here's what you're correct. 100% agree with you, and this is where I think it comes back to identification, because you mentioned autism, right? I had, if all you're hearing, let's say childhood, right? Take a step back. So if all you're hearing is like, you're dumb, you're dumb, you're dumb, you're dumb, eventually you believe you're dumb, right? Even if you're the smartest person in the world, it's just conditioning. And then you get to this point, and you mentioned autism, like, here's an example. I'm a little quirky, right? And I'm not always the best at social interaction. Sometimes I'm great, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I love to be inside, I want to read. Other times I'm nuts, right? All over the place, kind of. And I had this girlfriend years ago, and she would say, one day she brought up to me, listen, I think you may have you may be autistic. I'm saying, what are you talking about? I've made it 29 years. No one's ever said that to me, right? She's like, well, this and this and this. And she points out like these 4 or 5 things that I do that I just
Oh my
consider a
God.
little odd, right?
I
But
think
all
the
of a sudden,
relationship's over. Man.
right? Yeah, exactly. It ended very shortly after that. But the point I'm trying to make is that like she's identified these things. She learns about whatever. She watches TV, and then all of a sudden, everybody that acts that specific way, like Sheldon Cooper, all of a sudden he's on the spectrum, right? Maybe he's
Yep.
just a very smart guy. He's very, very weird, you know. And the same thing comes back to this, to maybe anxiety. Like I noticed in social situations, I'm not always the most outgoing. Sometimes I just want to kick back and listen.
Yep.
And I just identify, okay, maybe I'm this is 25% of the I'm in this range of the spectrum that's already been defined. It's like,
But it doesn't mean you need to be on an anti-anxiety med necessarily.
right. No,
Just, you know,
I agree.
there are degrees of weirdness. I mean, I consider myself pretty weird too. And I think, and I would wager Ed would say the same thing. I think it's really about,
Wow. No.
sorry, Ed. Sorry, I forgot that you are a perfect specimen. But it's, you know, with this barrage of stuff, and I'll say stuff instead of another 4-letter word, you kind of, you find yourself, I'll speak for myself, you find yourself questioning yourself, you know, am I really that weird? Maybe I am, you know, maybe I need help, and you know what? We don't give ourselves, and we don't give our friends and our colleagues the space to deal with problems. And if we all gave ourselves and our friends and our colleagues a little bit of space to deal with problems, and an openness to talking about problems that we all experience, I suspect we'd be in a better place.
Right. Well, I mean, in the workplace, I've got friends that have quiet areas with beanbag chairs, and people can take a little nap if
Yeah.
they're feeling like upset. I think that's great. Right?
Yeah.
Personally, I mean, sometimes I'm a little stressed out. I love to nap. You said you like my decorations. I've got a nap chair right over there in the corner of my room. Sometimes, you know, you just got to turn the lights on and take it. But I think there's in some ways it's transformed the culture as a whole for the better.
Yeah, I agree. Good deal. So Bryan, one question I wanted to make sure we asked you, and Ed, when I stepped away, you may have asked it. So if I repeat, I apologize. But you know, you do deal with a wide variety of kinds of clients. You have diversity in your client base. As you reflect back on the last 5 going on 6 years, what kind of characteristics make for a successful project or a successful client relationship?
I'll tell you, I jumped into this from the corporate world with only 3 years of experience, right? I had no idea. There's no business strategy. I was an analyst. I was focused on learning different languages of coding, and none of my projects, I mean, I successfully completed them, but they took longer than anticipated. The relationships with the clients weren't the best. I didn't know everything that I was working on. I had to learn on the go. So I think that what makes for a successful project, in my experience, is just knowing what you're doing, but having that business sense rather than just going into it as an employee, because you can manage tasks, or I mean, this is the entire purpose of having, say, a project manager. You can complete a task, but if you're simply taking on a project to complete a task, then it doesn't make sense to me. I like projects that can be automated or better organized. So I don't think that anything really works with there's some scattered. This is kind of why this position, this company makes sense to me, and this is why I created it, right? I don't think anything works if you have a bunch of information in different places and you have a couple of different directories and maybe one's in Microsoft and some other things in Google, like why is it not all in one place? So typically, I mean, I won't bid on a project or I won't talk to somebody about even performing a project if I can't help them. And I think that having that need to better position yourself with your information is the key to me solving anyone's problem or having a problem to solve at all.
Bryan Tamburino, I really appreciate your time and your willingness to divulge a lot and share ideas with me. And Ken, thank you very much for bringing all this together because I'd say this was like a unplanned, unscripted mastermind on dealing with business reality today. What do you think, Bryan?
Right. So I do. This was a really great experience. And I just want to recap the beginning. I know I didn't have the best internet connection. So now while I do.
Please do.
Yeah, just to clarify. So to break it down simply, I work with municipalities. We do custom software or grant preparation, grant management. I work with businesses. We integrate things like maybe our CRM for a business that's really growing and picking up new leads. And then, of course, we have consulting services such as like this HR team that we put together. So it's like myself, Ken, this gentleman, Charles Reese, who focuses more on like culture. I got a compensation people, right? We're always looking for new connections, new friendships, new opportunities. The website is tangibleconsult.com, just to recap. And one thing that we did not mention, but I'd love to try to get both of you on sometime soon. So I used to interact with the Chamber of Commerce that's local to me. We had a podcast. It was called Fuelcast. The episodes, some of them are
called what?
pretty,
Fuel what?
Sorry, it was called Fuelcast.
Fuel test?
Fuelcast, CAST.
Got it. Okay.
Right. And we have some pretty funny episodes. You can find it on Spotify. I love it. We've recently, myself and my friend, through this business, so like as a business product, we've launched a new podcast. It's called Gassed Up Podcast. It's kind of like a nod to the old. And it's going to be great. It's just interview format, have a lot of great people here, very smart people. And I want to learn how you got to the specific spot that you are at. You could be a mental health professional, like we were talking about before, could be HR, could be the person working down the street that I've never met before. But I want to learn about strategy and growth. And that's kind of the theme of this show that I've created. So at some point, I'd love to have the both of you on there as well.
I'll be there.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
I sense an opportunity here.
Yeah, very good.
Ken, what are you going to do the rest of your day today?
Got a couple more phone calls. I have a coaching call. A lawyer called me and she wants to interview me on disciplinary procedures for her podcast. So I'm going to do the pre-meeting on that and just crank away on that compensation plan and start putting together a presentation that I'm going to be doing at Eastern Connecticut State University for an HR class early next month.
That's undergraduate?
This group is undergraduate, yes.
Right. So so you're going to be the visiting professor?
Yeah, well, guest speaker.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah, you're not ready to call me Dr. Ken yet.
All right. This is Ed in Southern California. Thank you, Bryan Tamburino, tangibleconsult.com. And Ken Summers, Managing Partner, Summers HR Solutions. Please come back to Global TV Talk Show. Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.